is financials, right? So number one, what do your operational financials look like? What does your cash burn rate look like? How much money do you need? And then of course, what exactly are you going to ask for when you do get in front of capital, and what are you going to offer in exchange? This is a piece that we've done very manually for a long time. We're currently working on turning this into a module and making it, making it scalable. So this piece right now is not available on our website, but it is coming very, very soon. We're almost finished with this one. And then making the match. So how exactly do I identify the most promising ventures, the most promising founders, and how do we introduce them to funders who will understand your need and be able to help you? So what makes you investable? What's the ask, and how do you plan to use it? So before we jump into the workshop, I do want to walk you through one of the modules that we have in this section here. I just want to pause there and see if anyone has any questions or comments, or maybe wants to share a personal experience, either on the problem or the solution side. Unluckily for you all, I'm very comfortable with awkward silence, so I'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds to see if anyone wants to jump in. Okay, that's about as much as I can take. So let's jump into the workshop. So one thing I didn't mention, I mean, we've branded this the GlowRaise Global Game Changer. So completing these 5 modules, these 5 categories, is what will make you eligible for us to evaluate your company and potentially introduce you to our capital network. So completing these modules will give you the GlowRaise Global Game Changer certificate, and it also makes you eligible for us to introduce you to our capital network. So I do just want to share one of the modules with you. It's also available on glowraise.com, but we can go through it here together. And so this is what the digital workbook looks like. So again, looking at that standing apart, how do you solve the need uniquely for others, from others, and for whom? And this is just a little bit of an introduction, talking about, this is cutting edge. We've refined this over years and years and years of putting this in front of entrepreneurs and then getting feedback from investors as well. And so what is it? So each module comes with a guidance section. So the intention of this particular module is to consider whether and how your firm delivers value relative to other offerings. And so the instructions, and I'll go through this in detail in the next slide, but you complete each of the sections as accurately and as honestly as possible. And then for something to be valuable, it basically needs to solve a way that the market will solve a need in the way the market will readily pay for. And then common refers to things that other firms also do and that probably do identically to you. And the intended insight from this exercise is to understand which of these 4 quadrants was easiest to complete, and then to consider the prompts and figure out what exactly you're going to do with the results that you have in front of you. So this is the exercise itself. These are the 4 quadrants. And perhaps it will be easier for me to walk you through an example first, and then I'll give you guys some time to critically evaluate your own venture, and then we can come back and we can share, and we can go from there. So I'll pop up an example here really quickly. So this is we'll call it a fictitious company that used a mobile application to create t-shirts that fit perfectly. So what it would do is it would take a picture of you, basically take a selfie, and then it would identify across 2,000 data points exactly what type of t-shirt or what size of t-shirt would fit you perfectly. And then it was custom made based off of those measurements and delivered to your delivered to your house. So what did we do that was valuable that nobody else did? So number one, we had cutting edge technology. No other application was able to take your physical measurements based off of a picture from a camera phone alone. Some people might be familiar with companies that have done this with jeans, but those were enormous machines. You had to go into the store to get your sizing, and this would do it purely just from a selfie on the phone. And then also personalized clothing sizes. So there was no small, medium, large. It was Danelle, Aaron, Brad. And then what valuable offerings did other people do, but that we felt we actually did better? So procurement, we had personal and channel partner strategies kind of go hand in hand. We had personal relationships with the suppliers who were on standby, ready to make clothes for our customers and tailor them to their personal sizes, which if anyone knows anything about the clothing industry, those relationships are very difficult to curate, and to have somebody ready for just us to make t-shirt sizes on demand was very unusual. And then also the user graphic interface. Everybody has a GUI, but ours was superior. So what are some common things that we had to do, but we did, well? So customer service experience, we did that well. Everybody has to do that well. If you don't do that well, you're kind of in trouble. Especially if you're ordering clothes online, even though they're personally fit clothing, you needed a solid return policy, a satisfaction guarantee, and a really good influencer marketing strategy. So again, these are things that everybody did. We thought we did them well, but we reimagined them a little bit and added some innovation into this process. And then common offerings that were done commonly. So there were people who just wanted a small, medium, or large sized t-shirt, but still wanted to order from us because we had pre-shrunk organic bamboo cotton. So we did do this, but we avoided it at all costs. So we didn't advertise that we did it, and we basically made it very difficult to find this option. So we tried as best we could to avoid it. It wasn't totally avoidable, but that's what we did. So this gives you a little bit of insight into how this exercise works. These two boxes are typically the most difficult to be really honest about. And before I jump into turning it over to you guys and having you do this exercise, I do think I had a question come through. And I'm sharing my screen. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and jump back, and I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to take a critical eye to your venture and try as best you can to answer these questions. You don't have to answer all of them. If you just want to focus on one box, because we're only going to do 3 minutes, that's totally fine. I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to turn my screen sharing off really quickly and check that chat that came through. And if it's relevant to the group, I will respond to everybody. Okay, 3 minutes and go.
Hey, Brad, it looks like we lost your screen there too.
Oh, right, and you'll need that. Okay, so Aaron, you had sent me a message saying that there's a question that came through on the side.
Yeah, so
totally feel free to jump in with questions at any time.
Screen there too.
For some reason, I can't see that question, and I.
Oh, so no worries. So, question for you. just to kind of make this a little bit interactive, I just wanted to maybe pitch something that we're working on, and maybe we can also look at this sort of live so that other people who are watching this now or later can also kind of see sort of your thought process to how you solve this problem. So let me pose this to you. I mentioned that our next pub talk is going to be on kind of rapid prototyping and 3D printing that myself and one of the other board members, Jason DeBose, is going to be presenting. And as part of that, what we realized is part of the problem, the challenge is access to tools. And so we figured, okay, let's make the tools available kind of, on a cost plus just a basis so that people can have access to these tools that are typically hard for startups and individuals to sometimes own, but without spending tons of money elsewhere. How do you build something? And so let's bring these tools out there. Let's create a website where they can do some quoting. So it's a lot, in a sense, like some of the other kind of prototyping websites, but our goal is to present this more as a local manufacturer and whatnot. And so I'm looking at your Edge Matrix here in context to this project that we're launching and trying to fill this out. And the question that came to mind is, how do we answer this honestly without almost lying to ourselves about what our value offering is? Like, I could say, oh, well, we have the greatest printers. We do. We have access to some very modern, really great printers. But I also know that there are some $1 million printers that we don't have access to. So how do we be honest in answering this? And how do we not even falsely trick ourselves into thinking that some of these statements that we're making are true? Does that matter? So let me try. With respect to valuable offerings that others don't do. Our 3D printing and kind of manufacturing, one of the things we want to do is live quoting. If you have a part in mind, sometimes it's hard to pick up a phone and say, hey, like, how do I get this made? So we want to make it so you can just go to a website and get a price back. Is it the perfect price? Probably not, but we will get you in the ballpark. That's our kind of, let's make it real easy and lower the barrier. And we want to really kind of focus on this kind of, at least initially, on helping these prototyping efforts. You want to do one, you want to do two, you want to three. We're not here to do 10,000. We're not going to sit down and say, well, what's your goal to do? When's your schedule for going into production? Our goal is to say, you want one, you want two, you want three, you want to try it. Let's do it quickly. Let's get you a number so you can go back and say, I need to rethink this. The price is way off, or I need to look at other technologies, and we want to make that available. So that's our offering that we do, that we think we do better, that we think others don't do. What we do with respect to what others do better, I think, is sort of an extension of what I just kind of said. We want to do some quoting, but we want to do it live, where you don't have to wait for someone to get back to you per se. And we want to build to kind of support those low volume things. I think those are real statements, but that's what I've convinced myself is real. So maybe you're just on those two. Maybe you can share your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty. First of all, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is we are all perpetual optimists. And we always believe that we always believe in a brighter future, and that our solution will make the world a better place. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't think that even if the ability to think really critically about what box that belongs in will help you plan your strategic future. And for us, honest answers to those questions are fine, even if a majority of your solutions fall into one of these two boxes. Well, specifically this one. This is giving you right here direction about what to do next. So I heard you say something that you do that other people don't, which is give like live quoting, and that's the one that other people don't do, right? So you also mentioned that you're not looking for something that is going to be 100% accurate, but you're prioritizing speed over quality to get them a ballpark so that they can make a decision for themselves about, like, wow, I thought this was going to cost $1,000 and it's going to cost 10 million. I was way off. This is crazy. And so you can place that service in here, but then you're getting instructions about what to do next. So you need to develop that service, and you need to say, okay, here's the project management triangle, and we are emphasizing speed over the cost to develop the service and the quality of the answers that it will give. And we want to develop that, and we want to make that as fast as possible. So how do we concentrate on the speed part, and how do we develop it? Do we need to hire more people or to be available to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to contract like an optimization consultant to understand when the most people are going to be contacting us, to make sure that we have the most people available at that time? And so if you come up with a core product or a core service or core offering that falls into any one of these categories, you're getting a little bit of insight about what to do next.
Okay.
And so you mentioned that, okay, so you've got, there's something that like, so you mentioned you have printers, they're not world class, but they're high tech. They're not, you have printers that maybe they're not the highest end, maybe they're not the multi-million-dollar 3D printers, but they're of very high quality.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that maybe everybody has, but you do it really, really well. So how can you take this service that maybe already exists and reimagine it to move it into a differentiator for yourself? And so if you've got all these really high quality printers, they're not the best, so everyone does them. How can you reimagine the offering of those printers? How can you make them available at a lower price point, or available for free, or available at all hours of the day? Or, I mean, how can you reimagine the access to those printers to differentiate yourself from other people that are offering the same thing? So before I ramble, I'm going to stop there and see if you have any comments, or if anybody else wants to jump in and maybe offer their thoughts about that as well.
I definitely welcome anyone else who's on chat. Feel free to unmute and join the conversation. The purpose for this is for everyone to kind of learn, and I'm trying to kind of use this example as sort of an exercise to work through these examples and ask Brad some questions. So everyone, please feel free, or if you want, you can send either of us a message and ask that way too. Brad, let me ask, is it important to have 5 bullet items, just one, and do we need to prioritize them at this stage to go through this exercise? How do we avoid getting into a trap where we think something is valuable and we should develop it when it's not important?
That's a really great question. Ideally, it would be with feedback from us, and right now that feedback comes manually. But we're looking to automate that type of feedback. And so we might not be available, we might not be the best people to give you that feedback. And so you could take something like this to a friend, or someone in your trusted network, and you could say, hey, I really think that this is something that we do that nobody else does. And I did this very thing one time, and somebody immediately shot back with, oh yeah, like such and such app does that. You've never heard of them? And I was like, no, I hadn't. So I thought that I had this $1 million idea, and come to find out that somebody had invented it years ago, and I was like the last one to hear about this awesome, like, cutting edge app, right? So it can be tricky if you have intellectual property that you want to keep close and you don't want to share with a lot of people. But you have to have a couple people within your core and trusted network, even if it's a sibling or a close family member or close family friend, that you can take this to and say, hey, do you agree that this belongs in this bucket? I actually expect people to be overly optimistic in all of these exercises. What we want to avoid is the difference between optimism and total disconnection from reality. And so if people come back and they have bullet points that are only here, and they've got 100 of them, that's unrealistic, disconnected from reality, and very unlikely for us to want to move forward with you because, I mean, do you have a website? Is your website something that nobody else does? Then you've got a bullet point that you can put in one of these two boxes, because everybody's got a website.
Let me ask, since you did mention, and I think others may have this question to some level, as my primary business, I work doing electronics, designing electronics for other businesses. And so intellectual property is something that comes up often, whether it's the idea or something very specific. There's always a need for an NDA before people feel comfortable sharing. So when going out and looking for kind of funding, especially in filling out this kind of matrix, how do you share some things that you are trying to protect as core that makes your idea valuable, especially if it's not protected with respect to a patent or something like that yet?
Yeah, it's a really tricky balance. And the engineers are not going to like this answer, I know, but that's okay. In my experience, most ideas have been thought of before. Not all, and I'm not trying to say that anybody on here who has $1 million idea that it hasn't already been thought of, but in my experience, most have, and where the true value comes from is operational excellence. So if you've got 100 people that all had the same idea 2 years ago, there's really only going to be 1 or 2 people who has the capability to execute that idea. So that's my personal opinion, and I know that I have one member on my own team who disagrees adamantly with me on that. I wish that he could be here so you could watch us argue about it.
I appreciate that answer. I think there's a lot of truth in that. You've heard the saying, kind of, ideas are cheap, and it's that the value is in the implementation and the value is in your execution of it. And I think kind of sharing that is important to share with other entrepreneurs who have an idea, to not be afraid to be able to share your broader vision without necessarily feeling like you're giving everything away. There's plenty of magic. Part of that magic might be a lot of little ideas that you're putting together, even if they aren't all, very complex or anything. It's your work in putting that together that makes that whole idea come together. So the high level concepts, if you can't share it, you're going to have a hard time finding investors, talking about it, and you're going to have to do that at some level anyway. So I think your point is well taken.
Thanks, Aaron. One other thought on that: any company that is registered in the U.S., whether you're incorporated, LLC, sole proprietor, the intellectual property protections in the U.S. are very, very, very favorable to the inventor. And so if you don't have something that's under patent, and it gets stolen, it's not fun. But you can argue that in court, and you can prove with text messages and emails that you actually were the person who came up with that idea first. My other thought is that a lot of us do what we do because we want to make the world a better place. We think that we have an idea that isn't just going to make us a boatload of money, but is actually going to improve the lives of those around us. If someone steals my idea, for example, all of our intellectual property is available for free on our website. If somebody takes it and they execute it better than me, and they introduce thousands or tens of thousands of entrepreneurs around the world to capital and get those ideas funded, I'm going to be really upset. But at the same time, from a macro objective perspective, my idea did change the world. So I know that it's tough, but as a macro optimist, I try to hold that true as well.
Don't see any other questions. I will keep scanning Facebook and the other channels, but
great. Well, thanks for jumping in, Aaron.
There's a comment from Mike here. He just shared, many great and sound entrepreneurs in the Benton County area. Proof is how highly ranked we are in patents per capita. Have great concepts and product services in their planning, but they don't possess the marketing or getting the product/service to market expertise. It's where many fail in the Shark Tank test. How do you measure their ability in this area when determining their fundability or viable access to capital? So the idea is good, but they lack the other business savvy aspects to productize, to market.
That's a really critical question. And part of the investable journey, part of what we do to prepare you for that conversation with investors, so that if you are in a Shark Tank situation, that you are prepared, exists within our making the match category. So the most critical piece of this one here is what makes your founding team investable. So we have a module within this category that addresses specifically, it's called World-Class Team Factors. And we address that idea very, very directly of you need to be prepared before you discuss with an investor how you are going to address a gap in your team. And that does not mean that you need to have your team, that you need to have every answer to every question before you can move to the next step. A lot of accelerators, incubators, a lot of people that you will share these ideas and these pitches with will know other people that could be a good complementary match to your engineering or your prototyping mind that could have the business acumen and the finance, the marketing. And so that's another really great reason that I would encourage you to share your idea with other people, especially if you are looking for the other half of, or not necessarily just half, but if you are looking to complement your core team. And so I will leave it there and encourage you to go to glowraise.com, check out the Making the Match course, and actually work through the World-Class Team Factor module and see if you are able to gain any additional insights. This is a great opportunity to tell you all that I also want feedback. So these modules have been refined many, many, many times. They have almost always been given in the format that I'm doing it now, which is with a moderator. And what we're trying to do, what we're trying to prove right now is that these modules can be successful on an autonomous level so that you are able to understand them and work through them without me walking through an example. And so I believe his name was Michael. For that question, I would encourage and I would love for you to go to our website, take that module, and then give me some feedback. Let me know, like, hey, either this helped me or it was confusing and I couldn't work through it on my own. But reach out to me. I'm happy to hop on a call independently and walk you through it if it doesn't make sense. Get your feedback to improve it moving forward, and go from there.
We have one more question.
Please.
If it is applicable to the section or if it is better addressed later, definitely let us know. This is from Daniel Schaefer. What is your opinion of the main problem with VC financing? Which should better be described as speculation, not investing? The majority of VCs seek a rapid exit. VC money goes to software companies because they have low initial cost to start up, low variable cost to produce, and can rapidly exit. Companies that produce physical products and need manufacturing infrastructure are ignored, even if that business can generate substantial long-term cash flow. And I think this is definitely kind of an interesting point because in your investable question, this is certainly a case with someone who has the traditional item that's ready to go versus something that has a long development path. And so we're not treated the same. A classic engineering case of this is the guys who used to spend literally billions of dollars manufacturing a chip to end up in a phone. And if you can get it into an iPhone, great, you're selling millions. Well, the guy who spends an afternoon coming up with a jingle for a ringtone sells it for 99 cents and has accomplished a similar goal, maybe not to the same scale, but one has a very low overhead, one has a huge overhead. They're both important. You can't have the phones without both. But how do you see that kind of as a challenge with this field?
I'm going to start by addressing the core of that question, which is, what do I see as the main problem with venture capital? And I see it as ego. I see it as a good old boys club, which has found a formula for success and has pounded that formula and refined it again and again and again ad nausea, to the point where, I mean, this is how disruption happens, right? So people see success, they copy it, and then they refine it, and then they start making little baby steps into infinity. And that's what's happening right now in the world of venture capital, is that there's this successful Silicon Valley model. They are drilling it to the point where our brightest minds and our deepest pockets are funding face swap apps, and we're just to the point where nobody cares. And this goes back to the core of the problem, which is that access to capital is neither democratic, meaning the best ideas, or sorry, level playing field, or meritocratic, meaning it's not the best ideas that win. It's the shiniest ideas and the ones that come from the Stanford dropouts, seemingly exclusively in today's world. I hope you're picking up on my passion and my tone on this one, is that this bizarre race to fund the biggest egos is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. My experience in Uganda taught me this lesson. My coworkers' experience in Pakistan and Costa Rica all said the same thing, which is that there are ideas that are not worth $1 billion that are very good ideas and deserve to be funded. And just because a solution is only worth $400 million and it's only going to save 10,000 people's lives does not mean that it should be immediately taken off the shelf because, Snap is going to make the investors $4 billion. So to get into a little bit more detail about your question, that's what we do, is we collect the investors that are not interested in, or that have already made a name for themselves, that are already successful and don't need the money and are interested in solving real problems. And we pair them with entrepreneurs who have been shunned by the good old boys club. And so that is exactly what we're doing, is trying to bridge that gap. And right now, this entire industry is very, very, very prepared to be disrupted, because they have latched onto this formula and they are just ignoring everything else, and everything else is viable, in my opinion. I think there's millions of fantastic ideas and entrepreneurs all over the world who are missing only one piece to the puzzle. And that's financial backing and access to strategic insights to make these subtle changes and refinements to their business model to really take it to the next level. Great questions. I love questions. Questions are what make these fun and interesting for everybody. And please continue to jump in and interrupt. If you guys have questions, you can just interrupt me in mid-sentence. I actually much prefer to have live dialogue than to run through this presentation. So, okay, so you've filled out your edge matrix. You've talked to a close friend, and you've shifted your bullets a couple times into a couple different boxes, and now what? So how do you understand the results? So if there are 4 categories here, you're either leading, you're have an advantage, you're in a parity situation, or you're in fact into a disadvantage. And so if these knowledge factors and these performance factors pertain to you, if this is how you describe yourself, then you are in fact in the leading category, which is great. Most are not. Most are in one of these two categories, which is fine. There are plenty of successful entrepreneurs in Advantage, and it's very easy or very doable, I should say, to move from parity over to Advantage. And so rather than read through this with you guys, I will make this available to Aaron and Danelle and the WIN team to disseminate, and we're recording it as well. So you can read through this in detail. You can also, everything that I'm showing you right now is live on our website. You can always go to glowraise.com and check this out as well. But moving on to the insights, these are suggestions based on whatever category you're in order to move up into the next category. So let's take, for example, you're in a parity situation. You're likely performing similarly or maybe slightly below average compared to your peers. So what you want to do is prioritizing developing your high value market activities, and then taking a really critical eye to what fell into the bottom right corner, and either not doing it at all or outsourcing it. Web maintenance is a great idea. If you're spending a ton of your time maintaining your website, get somebody else to do it. Pay somebody else on Upwork.com to maintain your website, or forget about it and move straight to door-to-door sales. So avoid or offload those activities, and then that will help you move into the Advantage category. And then, of course, this is actually one of my favorite parts of these exercises. Every single one of these modules ends in the same way. And what we ask that you do is we say, okay, based on everything that you just went through, based on the exercise, based on the insights you gained from it, what are you going to continue doing or even focus on doing? What are you going to stop doing altogether? What are you doing that's just not a good use of your time? And what did you not even think of doing that you need to start doing immediately? And these are this is a really simple way to kind of 1, 2, 3 decide how to prioritize your time and energy. I do this myself with GlowRaise all the time. And I did it as part of my 2021 objective setting. Was what am I spending a ton of time on that is just not a valuable use of my time? And it's, I love to use personal examples. So I personally was spending time maintaining the website. That's not my area of expertise. And so I basically decided that I was going to stop doing that. And I was either going to have another member of my team do it, or what we decided together was offload it, is, get a couple $1,000s together, find somebody on Upwork, and have somebody design it for us. So you will see glowraise.com changing over the next couple weeks. And so I'm rambling again. I'll stop. But this is a really great exercise. And Aaron, if you want to jump in, or if anyone wants to jump in on Aaron's behalf and talk about, what they should continue doing, what they should stop doing, what they should start doing, that's great.
Yeah, let me jump in here. I'm just going to continue with the same example that Jason and I are doing. Jason, I know you're on this call too, so feel free to unmute if you want to. You actually mentioned one, which was website. When Jason and I started looking at this, we said, hey, it would be really great, but both of us are running companies, and we wanted to do this offering, and it required this technology, website development. So it was something that we knew was sort of core to be able to put it out there and reach people. And so we knew that if it was left up to me in my free time, that my free time just meant that it didn't get done. So we needed to stop doing that ourselves and ask for help to get that done. But there are some core pieces that needed to be solved. The technology, how do we actually do a real-time quote that makes it so that if someone does ask for us to do it at that we can make sure we're not under quoting, but that we're not way over quoting. And that was development that we had to do ourselves. We could not leave that up to someone else to figure out, and we couldn't just rely on best guess because that's core to our offering. So that's one thing that I know we Jason had to work through extensively doing trials. And same with the core portion of the software that does that quoting. We needed to make sure we could get all the numbers to work out. And that was the core piece. So I felt like we wanted to stop doing the web portion. We wanted and look for help there. We needed to really continue kind of doing our core understandings with respect to how to get numbers out to people quickly and make that work well. And it's an ongoing process for us because we're going to be bringing on more tools. And then the thing that we will be starting, ironically, to one of the earlier questions, is really kind of looking at how to put this out there with respect to marketing and letting people find it. That's something I think that we really need to build to. Without that, our offering would go without being found. So I feel like that kind of fills out this with respect to, I know those are broad kind of categories, but they sort of reflect what you said: web development, marketing, and the core technology. I don't know, do you have any feedback on that, or is there some more detail that we'd want to kind of flush out?
I think it's a really great example. 10 years ago, web development was super expensive, and you either needed somebody in your core team who could do it, or you needed deep pockets, or you needed the personal knowledge. And that's just not true anymore. The intellectual property piece, the how does this work? Yeah, you need to concentrate on that, and you need to make sure that is what you are developing, right? That's where you're spending your time. But in terms of like designing graphics or building a website wireframe, going through user access testing, doing all of that stuff is something that can be outsourced for sometimes like a few $100s. I don't think people always realize just how easy it is to get somebody else to do a website for you. Doesn't always work out perfectly, but I use Upwork.com to outsource some of our graphic design and some of our and we'll be using it for some of our web development. And it's easy, fast, and cheap, which is like the mecca in project management. So I think that's great, and I know that those are broad categories. If we wanted to drill deeper, I would drill deeper into the marketing piece, and I would say, what specific marketing activities do you think that you need to stop and start?
Okay. Let me ask just a question first off on relying on something like Upwork, and because it was a decision for us to try to let someone else do the website, mostly because we actually have an understanding from our other businesses of how we run our existing websites, and we didn't want to build up another one. We know what pieces we want, and so I'm kind of curious about your experience working with Upwork or these other kind of services and some of the struggles and challenges, because I think this is something that other entrepreneurs are going to run into. You hire someone else to do work, they're going to do something. Hopefully, you're paying them to do something, but how do you steer that? And that's part of your role to manage and maybe guide that. So if you can maybe talk to that. And for the marketing piece, let me get to that after that question.
Sure. I've never had a perfect deliverable coming from any of those outsourced activities. A lot of what you see has been pieced together from, I think, 3 different people now that we've worked with, and it still doesn't have the sizzle that we want it to. But I focused really intensely on so pairing a minimum viable product with my own personal hustle. So I've got something that doesn't really look that professional, but the quality of the intellectual property is, in my opinion, unparalleled. And so what I do is I take something that doesn't maybe look great and isn't ideal, but works, and I am out there on the phones, knocking on doors, metaphorically, of course, doing pub talks, getting this stuff in front of people, and lending the professionalism that it might be missing graphically so that I can offload that piece, focus on sales and product development. And then when the time comes, when revenue starts coming, then I can allocate a significant chunk of it towards hiring somebody on full-time to be more fully embedded and understanding everything about what we do from the core level all the way up to the top of the mission, and holding them accountable, every day. I mean, you can see their work every single day. So that's how I address that, is spending basically the smallest amount of money that I can in the least amount of time that I have to, in order to get the minimum viable product running, pair it with my own personal touch and professionalism, and then use the revenue generated from those things to ultimately hire on somebody full-time to take it to the next level.
Okay. So that marketing question, because I know is a very broad topic, and kind of just, this is a little bit off the top of my head, but it is basically something that we've kind of examined and said that is an exercise that we want to work through the marketing challenges of bringing this product as a service. It's tricky for us because in one part we're trying to extend this offering, not out of just purely the goodwill of our heart, but we know that that's one of the challenges for entrepreneurs, to be able to access this equipment. And so from our marketing perspective, we know the audience that we want to reach, which some of them are like people who are attending this meeting. Some of those people already have their own networks for producing it, but it's a common question: how do I build X? How do I build Y? Or I have this concept and I want to get to what you're talking about, the MVP. And you can't necessarily outsource that kind of stuff just to third party completely, because it's integral to that product design. So I think that with respect to marketing our product, the goal, we know the audience we want to reach, although maybe we need to be able to refine that better and define that. And I want to kind of call out Danelle, and I know Danelle, you also do some marketing work, and that's your area of expertise. Maybe you can kind of step in and help kind of this conversation, because I think it's a real core piece for a lot of entrepreneurs who are needing to take that step. I've had my other business in a state where we should do more marketing. What's the next step? What do we need to look at, and how do we prioritize with respect to Matrix? Because some of it takes lots of funds. Absolutely. Some of it is not expensive, like you're saying, like a website, but a website that no one finds is also not necessarily useful. So what should I be starting to look at? What should other businesses who are needing to take that step look at?
I think you have to start with a plan and your goals. Your goal setting. What's your objective? Is your objective to launch your company? Is your objective brand awareness? Is your objective to sell your prototypes? Is it a revenue goal? So really, with me, I always start with the strategic plan. What is your objective? And that has to be very specific, time-bound, measurable, all of the components of setting an objective, and then nailing your target audience. It sounds like you know who your target audience is, but just super specific about your target audience. And then that comes all of the strategies about how to reach them. And so you reach them where they're at. Where are they? And if your audience, for general purposes, are entrepreneurs in the Willamette Valley who are at the beginning stages of the company and in product development and need prototypes to, have a tangible output of what their product is, then where are they? Are they attending pub talks? Are they on Twitter? Are they, networking with their colleges and incubators and other networking groups? So really knowing the target audience, and I always encourage developing personas and really putting like a face and a name. and fleshing out exactly who these people are, so you have a visual idea of who they are and where they go and who they interact with and what media consumption they're using, and all of those insights into your target audience. And then a plan will flesh out a plan that meets them where they are. And of course, a multi-pronged strategy. So all of that can include, if you're launching the service, a launch plan. And that may, incorporate a social media plan. And if that is social media awareness of just name, brand awareness and service awareness and brand recognition, if that's search engine marketing, search engine optimization, meaning organic search, that they will type in, how do I make a prototype? And they will find you. So that, all of that comes into play, and that's driving to your website. What you said about developing a website that no one finds is completely pointless. But having a website is table stakes, and having a website that articulates exactly what problem you're solving or service that you're providing is table stakes. So getting everybody and driving them there is one component. People talk about influencer marketing strategy. So that's cheap, that's on the cheap side. Buying ads on Google is more on the expensive side. So a mix of everything is what is the best marketing. It's always like a holistic strategy with multi-pronged, but you can start small and cheap with PR and organic search and guerrilla and influencer marketing. And then you can get into the items that cost more, which is paid search and things like that. Other larger ticket items. You can hire consultants. You can hire agencies. You can spend money a lot, but you can also do quite a bit with a plan. And so I always suggest spending the money on developing the plan, and then that will give you the roadmap to which tactics to prioritize.
Brad, I'm gonna turn it around and ask you, because in essence, I'm trying to reach a similar audience to who you guys are trying to reach with respect to entrepreneurs. So where do you guys see yourself in reflecting on your plan here with respect to maybe that marketing piece? Like, what would you put down as something? Are you the principal marketer? Do you have someone? Where are you at?
I'm not the principal marketer and am self-proclaimed terrible at it, so I outsource that. I actually have contracted Cron-Miller Consulting Services for the strategic marketing plan myself. So quick pitch for everybody out here. Janelle is incredible at what she does. And we struggle a little bit with identifying specifically who our target audience is and where to meet them, because we originally defined it too broadly, which is just like every entrepreneur in the world. And so what we've done is we've pared it back significantly, and we're trying to identify like a handful of specific entrepreneurs to work very closely with them, to walk them through the entire journey so that we can better understand what their pain points are as a user going through our journey. I mentioned at the beginning that all three of us have done this. We have decades of experience doing this as individuals, but it's all been in more of the traditional realm. And so right now as GlowRaise, we are in the beginning stages of working on a grassroots level with a select number of entrepreneurs to put them through the process. So that's been something that's been very successful for us in terms of getting feedback and improving the process, which is something I would recommend with you is find somebody that, find a group or a handful and hold their hands through this entire process. Because that will get you proven users that you can point to, and then also B, they will not hold back in giving you feedback about what they don't like about your product or service.
Awesome. No, I think that is you kind of summed it up, and I think that kind of speaks a lot to Danelle's point of spend money on the plan, and it sounds like that's that's really important advice to kind of tackle that right. And I do like the message of not trying to do everything yourself, because as an entrepreneur, you'll find that you're very busy. And if you try to do everything, you're compromising. And as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't be trying to compromise. So I like that message that you guys are sharing. So thanks for that. Any other questions? All right.
Cool. So I'm going to start to wrap up my piece of it. So to summarize, there are three steps to engage with GlowRaise. Number one would be to access the journey at glowraise.com. I'll take you guys to glowraise.com here in just a second. Complete the journey. So complete the investable journey and receive your GlowRaise Game Changer score. And then we will work closely with the most promising founders and warmly introduce them to our Smart Capital Network. Again, I'm reiterating the exact same thing here. Go to glowraise.com, complete the journey, network with Smart Capital, and let's just take a quick peek at glowraise.com and I can show you guys exactly what that looks like. So if I go to glowraise.com, here you land. You can right away click on the investable journey. We'll go there in just a sec. This is basically just a summary of exactly what we just showed, which is the 5 steps to completing that journey. Again, this is, as I mentioned before, this is under construction. So I didn't like what I had, so I replaced it with this. So I made this, which is why it looks like that. And if you click the investable journey, it takes you to our courses. So again, nailing the need, standing apart, refining and scaling the model, everything financial, and then finding the fits, which I believe I directed Mike to earlier, which gives you course curriculum. And within here, and I'm not actually immediately seeing it, but within here is the module for, taking a closer look at your team, at your founding team. I just want to check on something. Oh yeah, okay, so this is it. My partner was in here earlier today. So this is the module about world-class team factors. So that's where you would go in order to complete that. So we do have little introductory videos, which I'll spare you for now, but they're short and insightful. The exercises, here's a bit of guidance. Here's the exercise itself, right? So you can actually see the exercise. And then beneath it, there are, for every exercise, there's an input that we ask you to complete. So right now, input your email address to make sure that we pair it with the responses with the right people. And then just answer the questions based on the exercise as honestly as possible. As I mentioned before, answering honestly will never exclude you from making it to the next round. Answering dishonestly will. It's much better to answer honestly, even if you feel like it's a shortcoming or a weakness, and then we can work together on making sure that that's not a weakness that gets exposed in front of Investor Network. And then, of course, every one of these has their own interpretation and an insight section, and then the standard what's your go forward plan, and then there's a little which we do ask you to fill out as well, and then a little recap and a preview about what's next. So that is how you would navigate through, and obviously we have these ranked, they're 1 through 5, but if you are super interested in in this specific curriculum for world-class team factors, you can jump straight in and just do this exercise. Completing any one of these will trigger, at least for now, will trigger a response from us. And so that's it for me in terms of GlowRaise and our presentation. And we'll just want to, more than anything, thank you all for attending, offering your insight. And we're excited to get our hands dirty and work with whoever is interested in getting introduced to our capital network. So, and with a call to action, right, Danelle? So go to glowraise.com and
I was just going to prompt you.
go to glowraise.com, complete the investable journey. If you are very, very interested in one of those areas and not all of them, feel free to jump into the area that's most interesting to you. And then you will hear from us shortly after that.
What would you say is the expectation of entrepreneurs at different stages in going through your program? So let's say that entrepreneurs at an idea kind of early stage, they have a concept, they haven't really done a prototype or MVP yet. What would they get out of yours?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our target market is early stage entrepreneurs, which includes people that are pre-MVP. That's fine. These modules will still help you.
Okay.
It's more likely that the conclusion of completing those modules will be your GlowRaise Game Changer score is not in the top tier. We'd like to see some progress on the areas that we identified together, and let's circle back in 6 months and talk again. So if this is the first time you've ever heard the word entrepreneur today, but you got a really great idea, you can still benefit from going through our courses. In fact, you will benefit immensely from going through them. And then we work all the way up through, I mean, there's well-defined stages of investment, but we kind of try to avoid the traditional investor jargon because we don't really believe in it. We work with early stage entrepreneurs. Interestingly enough, what's happened more commonly is people who are more advanced than we were expecting have approached us. So almost like they don't even really need our modules. They're just ready for the introduction to the capital network. And what we've been doing is saying like, okay, well, we still have identified this one hole. Go ahead and go through this one module, but let's talk on a personal level about what it's going to take to get you to the next step. And we can still complete the GlowRaise Game Changer score and continue to move them forward. So early stage entrepreneurs are the people that we work with.
So it sounds like there's a good wealth of knowledge that they can learn from going through the courses to help kind of, to some extent, self-evaluate where they're at. Do you, and to an extent, I think you're also then interacting and providing some feedback as to areas that they can work on and strengthen to be better prepared. For the companies that are in latter stages, like you mentioned, that the companies that are approaching you, it sounds like they're wanting to network. And of course, that's one of Wynn's goals, is to help people reach other people, because that's one of the challenges that I think people have. I mean, in this kind of global world, the person you want to reach, I mean, they could be your neighbor, they could be on the other side of the world. And to your point, and to your role in filling that need, the investor you need is not maybe the typical investor, and you're trying to help them get connected. So what, I guess, can you help share sort of where that kind of goes, or do you have like a use case that you could talk through?
This is where I would normally defer to my partner, Dr. Tom Hunsaker, who unfortunately was not able to join us this evening. He is our partner that is our gateway to the investor network. So his network is very, very well established, and he has, like I said, personally put hundreds of entrepreneurs through his process and his network. I unfortunately don't have a use case on the level of detail that you're asking for handy. But I mean, we are our GlowRaise Game Changer score, the investable journey. Those are the I don't want to, like, those are the gatekeepers, right? So those are the exercises that we put people through to determine who we are going to introduce to that capital network. We do have more information about the capital network, not a lot more, but we do have some more on our website under the About Us section. So you can go there and check it out. But I will tell you what, that by the time we get invited back to do a pub night, if and when, that is something that we can come prepared with, would be a specific use case and example of, here's a company that we put through, here was their experience, here are the investors that we can't really disclose the specific individuals, but
Sure.
we can broadly speak to their their professional accolades and what they've done and go from there.
That I think would certainly be awesome to kind of hear that kind of next stage of the journey. A couple of years back, we had a pub talk that had a couple of entrepreneurs who talked about their journey in kind of finding, developing their business and building up their company all the way through either selling their business, exiting it, kind of a merger acquisition. And the talk was kind of surrounding that whole notion of what are the different ways in which entrepreneurs see that full cycle. A lot of people are, of course, looking at it from the I have an idea perspective, but serial entrepreneur or true kind of successful entrepreneur has gone through that whole journey. And I think we heard from a couple local companies. One that I know that stuck in my mind was Garage Games. They were based down in Eugene, Oregon, and they made a very important gaming platform. It was used by a lot of people as a basis for developing their. It was a game engine that a lot of other people use to develop their own software on top of, and that journey, kind of hearing kind of some of the challenges and what they went through, is part of the networking and learning experience. So I think it'd be interesting to definitely kind of hear from you and some of the companies, kind of who they interacted with and what that journey is like, because I feel like that's an important part of this whole kind of process. So any questions or comments? I know I've kind of talked a lot here too tonight.
We have one from Daniel Schaefer for you, Brad. And just so you know, you're still sharing your screen on GG Interactive.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I was curious.
Just FYI. Will GlowRaise enter into a non-disclosure agreement with client companies?
We have, upon their request. It's part of our code of ethics and is implicit in the working with us that we will not share your secrets and intellectual property unless it's with your permission to introduce you to our capital network. But there have been people who have asked us to sign NDAs, and we have no problem with that. But we do not require it. It's more of a comfort factor for them. Every piece of our intellectual property is available for free online. So we would actually encourage you to share our IP with your peers. But going the other way, I mean, we're happy to work with whatever comfort level is okay with you.
I think that's similar to the question I asked earlier, which is people will find themselves in this stage where it's as they start to explore this, it is certainly a hard kind of bridge to say, how much can I share? One advice that I did get one time is sometimes those contracts are only good if you can defend them. And so my engineering business, we sign a lot of NDAs with customers, which define more of expectations of how we should behave with respect to each other. And I think that is an equally kind of important basis. Maybe you don't want them using your name, or maybe you are fine with someone using your name. Maybe you're fine with them holding onto your materials, or maybe you don't want them holding onto your materials after the work. And I think that is an equally important part of that relationship as you interact, not just with entrepreneurs, but other businesses, is those contracts, the best contracts are ones that are clear and that are fair and that are mutually self-reinforcing. It's much better to have a clear relationship with someone you're going to be doing business with. And so I think it's great that first off, you do say that you're willing to do that, because that alone is a barrier for some. I know early on for myself, I would have been in that role. I would have been one of those that would have felt more comfortable that way. And over the years, part of that was in feeling like I can let go of that I needed to focus on the higher level message so I can share without needing that, because I knew that piece of paperwork was a barrier to networking. It was a barrier to meeting people and be able to share those ideas. And it is something that comes up quite often. It is something that took us a while to develop, like our general NDA. And I'm wondering if that is a resource that Win may want to try to address for entrepreneurs and businesses, and maybe that can be shared through GlowRaise and other places for people to have templates, because hiring that lawyer to draft that up costs quite a bit. That could go better towards something like marketing, honestly. We probably spent several thousands, tens of thousands in legal documents over years, and in one sense they're boiler templates. And when you're starting off, there's a notion that what you're doing is so unique that you need something custom. And what I've learned is the more generic I can make it, the easier it is for someone else to read it, because they're used to seeing it. It's the language that they're used to expecting, and there's no surprises in it. So I think I appreciate that question, and would definitely like to kind of hear that kind of addressed more as it gets opened up. There any other questions before we wrap up? Annie, I see you on video. You said GlowRaise has also been great to work with. Can you share a little bit with everyone here, just what your interaction is?
Yeah, so I've been bothering Brad quite a bit for the past couple of weeks because, I've been trying to raise money for quite a while. I did have some investors say that, my company was just a couple of years too early. And I've pitched here before. I don't know if you remember, but and I had a great experience doing that. So thank you again. But, it's just, I come from within healthcare. I had a career as a mental health therapist working night shift for Providence. And so my first priority was not networking at the Rosewood Hotel in Menlo Park at happy hour. And I'm pretty proud of that. And but it's been a little bit difficult because, we really take an inclusive approach to providing the often overlooked basic need of clothing when people are sick. And with that is a need for capital as we are becoming more tech enabled. And what I love about Generation Z is saying you better be able to serve all conditions and treatments. You cannot start with one condition, which I respect that quite a bit. So talking with Brad, he's been pretty thorough with his questions and really good questions. He's also been asking me a lot about my fundraising experience and where the frustrations have been, which programs really were PR for investors. And, founders the runway time is so sacred that those programs, a lot of founders feel this way. Those programs actually cause harm because, making false promises, investors share information, they share decks with each other all the time. And so my first impression of GlowRaise is a safe, trusted haven. I love what Brad just said about, not sharing decks. I don't know if people realize what a big deal that is. And I think that really speaks to how unethical and how founders are not protected, in my opinion. So I think that's going to be a competitive advantage for GlowRaise. But yeah, I mean, the questions have been fantastic. The modules, I'm still going through those, but yeah, but I've had a great experience so far, and Brad's availability has definitely been appreciated.
Thanks, Annie. I appreciate it.
Looks like we have another question from Daniel here. Does GlowRaise have a bias in regards to international markets? Are companies focused on traded sector, international export revenue viewed favorably or too risky?
So one thing that all three of our founders have in common is the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So I was a student there. I graduated 4 years ago. That's where I got my my MBA. And so I have a bias towards helping overlooked and underserved communities. And for venture capital, that's most countries. And every time you cross borders and everything outside of, there's like 4 hotbeds in the US. It's basically like, obviously San Francisco, New York, there's a couple of places in Texas, Phoenix, Colorado is starting to pop up, but we don't prioritize international. In fact, right now we're either prioritizing places we've already been. So those countries that I've named, you know, Ecuador, Peru, Costa Rica, Pakistan, Jordan, are the countries we're prioritizing, and the United States. So that is sort of the regional kickoff. The end dream is there's money zooming all over the world, originating from every country and flowing to every country, including from one person to another person that are neighbors in, you know, like in Eastern Europe or wherever. So we don't have a bias, but we do have a focus because we're still a small team and we have to operate within our area of expertise for now.
I'd like to expand on that. Daniel, you asked, is there a focus on traded sector? And Willamette Innovators Network traditionally was a networking organization that was really focused on traded sector businesses. And as a local regional business networking group, the reason for that was that the brick and mortar stores served the local community and the money circulated locally in the community. So for our community to expand and grow more broadly, that money had to come from somewhere. And so we did look at traded sector businesses as sort of the ones that were growth kind of oriented. And I think to that extent, you see today, the state of Oregon supporting businesses, startups to help generate revenue from outside markets. And it's not limited to the US. In fact, they help support developing business in international markets because there are some challenges monetarily to traditionally when you used to have trade shows and stuff, to attend those trade shows to be able to reach international markets. So I guess my question to you, Brad, would be, do you serve markets because you understand those markets and you have investors in those better, or are you serving them for other reasons?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. And I apologize, I might have missed the core of David's question the first time around. But to answer your question, Aaron, yeah, so take Ecuador, for example. One of our founders spent 2 years in Ecuador when he was younger doing exactly this. But they also use the US dollar. So there's like one barrier knocked down for us, which would be exchange rates. Peru, I have personal experience in Peru working with Freeport McMoran mining, which is a mining company, which owns a nonprofit subsidiary called Dream Builder, which is an organization that works with women entrepreneurs in Peru, because Freeport-McMoRan has mined the crap out of that country. So they sent their nonprofit arm in there to sort of offer a service, and I ended up volunteering with them for quite a while in like 2016. So I have expertise there. So yeah, I mean, the short answer to your question is yeah, we've got familiarity, and there are barriers that have been knocked down for us in those markets. So domestically, you know, we are working with Phoenix and Denver, pretty much anywhere besides San Francisco and New York, because those are kind of the places we're trying to disrupt. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
Would you say that you have a broad representation of entrepreneurs on the other end of this equation, or is that something that's growing to find more markets in more specifically, are you finding those entrepreneurs, I'm sorry, when I say entrepreneurs, I mean investors, not entrepreneurs, those investors, are you finding them because they're wanting to serve their local community, or are those investors wanting to help projects in other regions? I guess
that's a really interesting question. So and it's got a long answer. I'll try to keep it short. We do not have an explicitly stated altruistic mission. We are like at our core values, that's who we are, and that's what we do. But we don't market that way, and we don't attract investors that way. We target investors who are looking for undiscovered ways to generate large returns, because if we're speaking very honestly, what moves and motivates people more than anything is money. And we, in our experience and in my experience, working through angel networks and doing quite a bit of due diligence, is that the second you present a Green New Deal or any kind of altruistic mission, the investor immediately thinks that you are more interested in something other than generating them returns. Most of our investors also have an altruistic mission at heart. That's why they're working with us, is because they've already gone down the route of like funding face swap apps, made a ton of money, and changed absolutely nothing except for making teenagers more depressed, or whatever bizarre thing is happening right now with social media. And so we get the question very often, like, are we industry specific? Are we working only with the tech sector? Are we working only with software? Only with brick and mortar? I mean, do we have an industry focus? And we don't. Most of our investors have some type of focused industry, but because we work with so many investors, we represent a very, we cover a lot of ground. We have a very broad representation. And the modules are not industry specific. You can plug any industry in there and it'll work. I mean, maybe with a few exceptions, but for the most part, it'll work. So like I said, there's a lot more to unpack there, but I'll stop there.
No, I think that's a great answer. Daniel, I hope that answered your question as well. I will ask one more time if there is another round of questions. Danelle, I don't know if you wanted to share any words.
No, I think this has been very thorough, and I'm hopeful that it's generated a lot of interest and connections, and enough interest for people to go check out the GlowRaise modules and give feedback to Brad and come back to Win as a community. And so we can all, share learnings and help each other out and drive business forward.
Thank you, Danelle. And Aaron, I'm going to share, sorry, just one before you do your closing remarks. I just put my email address out there. So if you guys want to connect with me, if you have any follow-up questions, if you get into the site and something doesn't make sense, feel free to just contact me personally, and I will get back to you. And with that, I'll stop rambling. I'll turn it back over to Aaron so he can close this out. Thank you again.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I know that I had a really good conversation. So thanks so much, Brad. Thanks so much to everyone who participated in tonight's event. And I know that we get questions rolling in afterwards. The events are recorded, and sometimes people post questions afterwards on Facebook. So we'll certainly. I think if we can kind of share that those questions through either our social channels, that's a great way to get them answered and keep the conversation going. And we would certainly like to have you back here to kind of look at that next section. And I know myself, I'm looking forward to kind of working through some of your modules and maybe trying that with this new concept we're doing with Jason, see if you have some feedback, and maybe it's also applicable to my core business. So I know I got a lot out of it. I appreciate it. And thanks for everyone who participated. So with that said, Brad's email, it's up here on my screen, and that is shared. So certainly you guys should send him questions if you have any. Other than that, thank you very much from Win. And look for us next month at our pub talk. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.